All right, we are live for another episode of 5 Questions with Simone. Simone is in, you said Carolina?
North Carolina.
East Coast, not too far away from me. At least you're on almost the same time zone. You're an hour off. You got your 5 questions lined up?
I do.
All right, let's get started. What's your number one most pressing question that you want to ask?
This one came out of an experience I had this week. So I raised my children, who are adults now, old paradigm. You work.
Yeah.
If it's play, you pay them. If it's work, they pay you.
Yeah.
Intellect, more important than feelings. And now I'm telling my 22-year-old, I was wrong about that. And I just don't know how to quite, I want to be authentic in my conversation with him. But there's, of course, mother guilt. There's always mother guilt. I want to figure out how to do this a way that's going to resonate with him.
Okay, so first about the mother guilt, something I like to remind parents of is that our children chose us as parents. And the way they chose us as parents wasn't by looking at the 7 billion people on the planet and saying, oh, that's the parent that's going to be the best for me because they're going to give me the easiest ride on this planet, right? Mm-hmm. So our children choose us not just because of our strengths, but also because of our flaws and our weaknesses. And so really they come here for our authentic selves. So a lot of parents, they're afraid of messing up their kids, but literally that's what the kids came here for. Right? So there's never any reason to feel guilty about how or what we're doing when we're upbringing our kids. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Now, in the question that you asked around, how do I teach my kids to become more in tune with, their emotions, law of attraction, living the new paradigm, all the stuff you've been learning in the collective. When it comes to other people, regardless of whether it's our children or family members, the neighbor, somebody's dog, when we go and we try to push these teachings onto people who aren't necessarily ready for it or wanting to listen to it, even though we know that it's in their best interest, if they don't want to hear it or are not in the receiving mode for it, there's a good chance that they're just going to put a wall up and they might even resent it more than letting it in. Mm-hmm. So what I remind people is the key to allowing other people to understand the impact of the things that we are learning is for us to live it to our full ability. And the more we live it, the more we apply it for ourselves, the more positive shifts we experience in our life, then they're going to take notice. Mm-hmm. So your son might be like, wow, mom, in the last year, you've manifested this, you've manifested that, you're so happy. That's going to get some attention. And then he's going to start asking some questions and start wondering, what is it that mom's doing to live such a happy, successful life? And that's when the door starts to open for you to begin to explain to them, share with them, these concepts around law of attraction, what you've been learning in the collective that'll help them.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It does. I'm sort of digging that answer.
Yeah. Okay. So the in a nutshell answer is be the example. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And be okay with them experience the contrast that they're going to experience in their life. Because as Abraham Hicks says, life experience is the best teacher. And we need to allow our kids to have that life experience, even though it's not pleasant for them sometimes and it's not pleasant for us to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You said something previously about tying shoes, and it's the adult version of tying shoes.
Yeah.
So, yes, I'm right in there with you on that one.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That's good food for thought. Something that I can't quite quantify is there's this part of painting the canvas, getting deep in the details, drinking it all in, making it juicy. and then letting go. So I'm like, okay, should I be painting the canvas right now, or should I be letting it go? And now I'm getting hung up on this. I'm not supposed to be getting hung.
Perfect.
Whoa,
Yeah.
stop.
This is a great question, and I think a lot of people are going to resonate with this. So, in the collective, I use this analogy of painting the canvas. So, what that really means is, we have a canvas behind us that's already painted. That represents the reality we've already experienced. And we have a canvas in front of us, a blank canvas that we are currently painting, right? And that canvas is what we'll be experiencing in the future. And what most people are doing is they're looking at the old canvas. And by looking at the old canvas and all of that stuff that you don't want to be experiencing, you're just repainting that on your future canvas, and you're going to experience more of it. So what you're asking is, how much time do I spend deliberately painting what I want on my new canvas versus taking a step back and letting it go, right?
Yeah.
So the in a nutshell answer to that is you want to paint the canvas not to try to experience what you're painting on the canvas. When you paint on the canvas, you want to paint on the canvas for the joy of painting the canvas. And what that means essentially is anytime you're doing intent setting work, anytime you're doing processes to try to manifest something, to try to achieve an outcome, if you're doing that from that energy of effort, then what you're doing is you're simultaneously activating the vibration of absence of that thing. Mm-hmm. So whenever we're doing processes from the energy of effort, we're also kind of pulling ourselves out of alignment. So when to paint that future canvas and when to do those processes is when you're doing them for the sheer joy and the pleasure of the process itself. So if you're laying on your deck, you're laying by the pool and you want to manifest a house, and if you can just lay down, if you can just lay by the pool and just dream of this house you want to manifest just for the sheer pleasure of the dream, then you're doing a good job painting your canvas. But if you're dreaming for no other reason than like the effort in trying to make something happen, then you're not in the right energy congruent to manifestation, and you want to take a step back from that. So as somebody who's seeking to live in this new paradigm, when it comes to letting go, I equate letting go to seeking pleasure, to feeling good. Because when you're in that state of pleasure and feeling good, you're automatically in that state of detachment. You're automatically in that state of having let go. Would you agree with that?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Because you're so busy being in pleasure, you don't care what's manifesting. That's the sweet spot. So from that place, you don't have to concern yourself with the canvas and pre-paving and all that stuff, because from that place of pleasure, you're automatically in that state of detachment and letting go. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. It kind of leads me into another question, and I'm not sure how the two dovetail yet.
Okay.
I think the alignment piece, like I play the game, I play the fucking happy game, and I'm actually surprised at like, wow, you do really spend a lot of your day up where you want to be, but somehow the other piece has not. I don't know that I've necessarily linked all the parts are all moving around. So I had this box back in 2012. I didn't even know it was called Law of Attraction.
Yeah.
I just went, I need to see different things in my life. And so I thought about like, well, what do I want to see in my life? I bought this little fancy box. I put them in there. And, many of them I've been able to pull out of the box, be really, really grateful that, look at that. I put that in the box and out came the thing, right? I still have some, which seems like a really long time. And now they feel, although the desire is still there, the piece feels stale. And I don't know how to move that. You seem to know what I'm talking about, so I'll let you go.
So essentially what you're saying is there's desires that you set your intent for way back then that still haven't manifested yet.
Yes.
And do those desires still feel exciting for you?
Yes.
Very exciting.
Yes.
And what you're wondering is why those desires haven't shown up yet?
Yes.
Okay. And how often do you think of that, one of those desires? So can you use one as an example? Do you mind mentioning one?
Sure. So I don't travel very much. I travel more in the States, but I not traveled internationally.
Okay.
I just love the idea of traveling internationally, just does it for me.
Okay.
And it has not yet manifested.
Okay. And do you have a specific trip, a specific destination in mind?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the destination? You want to share it with us?
Well, I'd like to go and do a little tour of Europe, do Italy, Spain, Portugal.
Perfect. Okay. So this European tour, have you mapped it out? Have you really planned it out?
No, I don't think
so here's my advice to you. So I would get as specific as you can around that desire. Decide exactly which cities you're going to stay in. Decide exactly how long you're going to stay in those cities. Decide where you're going to fly to, where you're going to fly from to get back home. Literally plan out the entire trip as if you had the money in your bank account today. Okay, so that's the first step. Now that you've got the clarity and that you've mapped that trip out, how does that trip feel? Does it feel fun and exciting? Or can you feel any wobble, any discomfort around the idea of taking that trip?
No, the idea of actually planning it out feels really exciting. It feels good.
And the trip itself, does it feel exciting, or is there anything that feels scary about that trip?
No.
Okay.
No. The only thing is the coming of it. That's the only thing that feels weird.
Okay. And that belief that it can't happen to me, is that a very strong belief? Can you feel this feeling of it's not going to happen? I don't believe it can happen. Because anytime any desire is not manifesting, it's because we have some kind of piece of resistance. So for you, that piece of resistance is probably one or two things. It's probably a belief that it's not going to happen. It can't happen. I can't figure out the how. Or it's noticing the absence of the desire. So when's it going to happen? When's it going to happen? Why is it not here yet? So it's
That's the one.
probably one of those two things. Okay, so it's number two. So it's impatience then.
Oh yeah, impatience is a recurring issue.
So here's what impatience is. Impatience is a discomfort that we're experiencing due to the absence of a desire. Okay? So the key to overcoming the impatience is to understand that that discomfort is there because there's a dependency on that desire in order to feel good. You want me to repeat that one more time?
Yes, yeah, because right down. Yeah.
So impatient is present because we're dependent on that thing that we're impatient for to feel a certain way. So in the context of your trip, if you knew you were leaving for that trip tomorrow, how would you feel? Because every desire we have, we want those things because of how we believe that desire is going to make us feel, right? So how would you feel if you knew you were leaving tomorrow?
That thing you said where you're in such bliss, your head spins off, that one.
Good. And if we were to label it, would it be like, would you really feel like this feeling of freedom, of being empowered, of being limitless? You know, what's the real strong emotion that is driving you to want this desire?
Limitless. Yeah.
Limitless. Yeah. So the impatience, if you felt limitless now in your day-to-day life, then that feeling of impatience would go away. you would then almost automatically be detached from the desire, and that's when it'll show up. So your homework after this call is to begin to practice the feeling of limitlessness as much as you can in your day-to-day life.
Yeah.
Makes sense? Makes sense?
I could do that. Yeah. I like how all those pieces fit together.
Totally. They always do. When you really understand how law of attraction works, when you really understand how everything is a reflection vibrationally, and that the law of attraction is consistent, just like the law of gravity, you can always trace things back to your resistance.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Awesome. Great question so far. I think we got time for one more. What do you got for me next?
Okay. I got, this is like one of those uncomfortable truths. So I love the collective where there's great things going on there. I get intellectually, everybody's on a different part of the journey.
Yeah.
And I am actually feel so fabulous when somebody else is like, you could see them, their top is going, they're just on it. Somewhere in there emotionally is, hey, am I doing something wrong? My top's not going. Like I could work my way. I don't know. I don't want to feel that way. Part of me was like, is that the little green monster coming to visit, or what's that all about? Talk to me about that.
Yeah. So there's two things that come to mind when you share what you just shared. So one is jealousy. The other is people on their high vibe disc or their high flying disc, right? Mm-hmm. So different people express being on their high flying disc in different ways. Mm-hmm. So some people, it's constant comments of "I love you" and "You're the best" and "Life is the greatest," and they're practically, their feet practically aren't on the ground, right? There's other people who are at that same level of bliss, but are just cool, calm, relaxed, and not expressing it in that same way. So I would probably fall into that second bucket, right? Mm-hmm. So everybody expresses their emotional states in different ways. There's no right or wrong. Everybody's goal should be, how good can I feel, for me, right? Now, if there's jealousy of like, wow, they're way up here, they're way high vibing, I'm not there, what am I doing wrong? And it's not about perceiving it as doing anything wrong. So, the emotion of jealousy is about having or practicing a belief or perspective that you're limited, or that you don't have access to that thing that other person has. So if you're jealous about somebody else's financial situation, the only reason you're jealous is because you're perceiving that you can't have that, or you can't be that, or that you're not there. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it's about money or an emotional state. It's just about understanding that you're practicing a limitation. Mm-hmm. And that jealousy feeling is actually trying to tell you that you're practicing a limiting belief that's holding you back.
Oh, that one keeps on coming up, doesn't it? Okay, so limitless, it's got to be.
Yeah,
that's where we're going.
You are limitless. Like, your inner being would never create a physical reality version of you. And this goes for everybody who's watching this recording. Your inner being would never create a version of you that's not good enough, that's limited, that's unworthy. Mm-hmm. It doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm. An unconditionally loving being who can create anything would never create a limited version of you, ever. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if you're not there yet, that's okay. You're still on your journey. And the journey is what you came here for. So it's not about being not as good as, it's not about being limited, right? It's just about working through our own inner blocks to achieving that level that we're reaching for. And that level that we're reaching for is available to anyone. It's just a matter of doing the right work, which is the self-reflecting, the going within, the identifying what's those beliefs that I'm practicing, what those perspectives that I'm practicing that are creating the resistance, and then shifting them. And you're already doing all of that stuff, especially being part of the collective and working through that belief tree process and the other stuff we do there. So you're well on your path.
The belief tree has been amazing. Amazing. I mean, the things that, you know, I like that you say every moment is a brand new moment and we're brand new people, because sometimes we hold on to old things only because they're familiar. Even if they feel bad, we hold on to them because they're familiar. The belief tree has let me go, why are you doing that?
Totally. It's literally the doorway to all of your negative conscious and subconscious thought patterns.
Fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Simone. This was super fun.
Thanks, Nick.
I loved your questions, and I guess we'll see you on the next Collective Life call.
That's great. Thanks, Nick.
Check you later. Bye.